Welcome everyone to our first Consider Every Option event for the year. Our Consider Every Option events are designed to help showcase some of our fabulous alums and engineers that are doing a variety of things with their degrees, maybe some things that as students you hadn't necessarily thought about, or maybe you had, but you weren't quite sure how you got there. And got to maybe be able to do those things with your engineering degree. So I'm super excited. We have 6 amazing folks joining us today who are going to answer some questions, tell you a little bit about who they are and their stories and their experiences, and we will have a lot of time for Q&A as well. So, and again, you can use the chat to throw in questions along the way, and we'll have, like I said, time at the end as well for Q&A. So what I'd like to do first is just have all of our panelists tell us just briefly who they are and what they do, and then we'll dive into some deeper questions. But let's go ahead and start with Jean Ann.
Tell you what I do. So I'm Jean Ann Booth. I'm the CEO and founder of Untitled. It's my 4th startup, 3rd one that I've started. Untitled makes a smartwatch for grandma. That's what Time Magazine called us. And that's us.
Awesome. Thank you. Saamiya.
Hi, everyone. My name is Saamiya Seraj. I graduated from UT in 2014 with my PhD. And then I did consulting for 5 years in the construction industry. And this year I opened up my first startup called A Better Force. It's a professional and leadership development company in Austin. And so I look forward to talking with all of you today.
Awesome. Thanks, Saamiya. Melissa.
Hi, I'm Melissa Simpler, 92 BSEE grad and 99 MBA, both from UT, Bleeding Orange. And I founded and exited one company called Affinity. We made a product for managing home networks and all the things that are connecting and using the internet, addressing automating fixes for wireless connectivity and performance, and a company that made a whole enterprise backend to run utilities and telecommunication companies across the Americas bought us. They didn't have any device management, but they had meter management on the smart grid side. So we completed the equation, and the federal government has a lot of funds to build out broadband access for everyone, particularly relevant right now with COVID. And the utility companies are jumping right in. So I'm working for the acquiring parent, likely through the middle of next year, and then maybe looking at what's next.
Awesome. Thank you. Wiede.
I'm Wiede Cutshall. I graduated from UT with a Bachelor of Science in Aerospace Engineering back in 1988. And since I have spent my career working on airplanes in San Antonio, Texas. I specialize in structural analysis of modifications and repairs to airplanes. And I do work both on the military side and on the commercial side.
Awesome. Thank you. May.
Hi, everyone. So I'm a global pricing manager at GE Healthcare. So I live here in Sydney, Australia, and as a global pricing manager, I am working very closely with the marketing organizations to make sure that we launch the right products to the right markets at the right price. And let's see, I graduated from UT Austin in 2007 as part of the first undergraduate class of the biomedical engineering department. And I also received my MBA at UT as well. But yeah, here in Sydney, so not too late for me, definitely morning of the next day.
Awesome.
So, well, hello from the future.
That's awesome. Sonia.
Hello, all. My name is Sonia Galani. I work at Texas Instruments. I'm the business manager for our Jacinto processor products, specifically the ones that have vision analytics. So a lot of the stuff that we the processors that we make actually go into, for example, cars for autonomous driving or autonomous robots, mobile robots. So they integrate machine learning as well as other computer vision algorithms to do a lot of pretty cool things. I graduated from UT back in 2009 biomedical engineering, and then after that, actually, also got my MBA from UT as well. So Longhorn twice over.
Awesome. Thanks, Saamiya. And I should say Texas Instruments is one of our fabulous partners for our Consider Every Option program this year. So thank you to TI and thank you to Sonia for being here as well. All right, let's dive into some questions. So maybe you heard through those introductions. So we have some consultants, we have some entrepreneurs, we have some that are doing business within companies, and then we also have a lot that are kind of mixed into those spaces and have done a little bit of all of that in their worlds. Let's start with our two maybe most closely in the consulting space at the moment, Wiede and Saamiya. So, you know, heading into consulting, our students, I think, often believe you have to know everything, right? If you're going to consult on something, you have to know it all before you can do that. So have you ever had imposter syndrome as a consultant? And if so, what have you done to push through that?
Well, I've dealt with that long before I became a consultant. It's like even all through college and starting out, all through there, I wondered if I really belonged. Was I smart enough? Was I good enough? And all the evidence pointed to the positive on that, but it was still hard to believe in some cases. But for me going into consulting, what I tell people the path was, it's like I spent some time developing marketable skills. And I didn't actually know that's what I was doing at the time, but I was just doing my job and learning everything I could while I was in that job and making connections with the companies we worked with, but primarily doing everything I could to further my education and skill set so that when the opportunity arose, I was ready to go out on my own and do this as an independent consultant instead of working for other people.
Saamiya, what about you?
I think I took a two-pronged approach. One is more on the engineering side and the other is more from the psychology standpoint. I think from the engineering side, I remembered our classes. When we learned a concept in class, it's not that we got the exact same problem on the test, right? But I believe what engineering school does is rather than teaching you a specific problem, it gives you a set of problem-solving skills. And I think whenever I encountered any new problems, that's how I would prep myself up, saying I might not know the exact solution to the problem, but engineering school has taught me how to get to the solution. So I think whenever I did have imposter syndrome, that's how I convinced myself, hey, I can get to the answer. This is what I've been doing in engineering school. And then related to that is also, I think, how vast the engineering world is and how interconnected it is with other industries. Sometimes you don't find the correct answer in engineering. You need to go call in an expert from a different field. So I tell myself, we don't have to know everything, but you just have to know how to get to the solution and then also call in an expert or call an expert from another industry when you do need help. And I tell myself there is no problem in asking for help or asking for outside expertise when the problem needs. So sometimes you won't know everything, but you can get to the solution. That's what I think from the engineering side. From the psychology perspective, I think what helped was studying about imposter syndrome and realizing how much messages we take in, starting from kids, from society, thinking we're not good enough or you need a certain set of marketable skills. So the more that I learned about it and I delved into what imposter syndrome is, I think it helped me to understand solutions. And, they have a lot of tips and tricks, like keep a list of your accomplishments in a drawer so that on a bad day, you can just take it out and read it. And so boosting your self-confidence, this is something that we work with our clients a lot, and it can be a year-long process, just getting to understand what imposter syndrome is and seeing what triggers you. So I think spending time on both, understanding the engineering perspective of it and knowing you can always learn and solve your problem, and then also understanding the psychology aspect of it, that everyone suffers from confidence issues and you just have to chip away at it a little bit at a time. I think those are the two keys that I use to overcome imposter syndrome.
Awesome.
What I also found particularly helpful is believing my friends. So you surround yourself with people who believe in you, and then you believe that they're right, that they are right to believe in you. And so that's a lot of it. It's a lot easier to listen to the ones who have negative things to say, but you have to also listen to the people who have positive things to say to you and about you.
So I think there's also the belief that consulting is, super glamorous. You're jet setting all over the place. It's exciting all the time. Is that true? Is it not? Tell us the real scoop behind consulting.
Well, it's like every project is different. What I like about it is there is a lot of variety in the work I do. And I do occasionally get to travel a little bit. That's not a regular thing for me. Just in my industry, the way technology has caught up with how we do business, most of the work that I do these days is remote. I interact with my customers. They email me, they call me, they send me drawings, which we can send mega files via the internet these days through various ways. And I can look at their drawings, I can evaluate designs, I can do analysis, and I can ship them back comments on drawings. I can do analysis and send them back the results of that. But into every project, a report must fall. And it's like everything I do for a customer, the end result is paper, and I have to generate that paper. The fun part is doing all the little techie bits and figuring out, doing the cool structural simulations that I think are so much fun to do. But at the end of the day, I've got to put all of the things that I did in a format for someone else to understand. I'm writing a justification for why something is good, or what we need to do to remedy it if it isn't good. But I've got to write that stuff up. And that's not my favorite thing to do, but I'm good at it and I can do it. And so that's just all part of the project. Some projects are more fun than others, but all projects pay the bills.
I think for me, it depends on what your definition of glamour is. I was thinking about a project where we did 184 apartments, and this was in Bangladesh, and they didn't have enough space for the water for the fire system. And so we had to, put the swimming pool and the rainwater harvesting water all together that the firefighters could actually use it if there was a fire in that complex. And I found that glamorous. So it really depends on what your definition of glamorous is. But I do find it very fulfilling because you see so much variety. And when you're coming up with the solutions, you really get to see how it impacts projects, how it makes people's lives better. And that's part of the reason why I went into engineering consulting right out of my PhD. And so it was deeply fulfilling for me.
Awesome. I'm assuming we're going to hear some trends as we get to the other folks here on this Zoom. So let's move to Jean Ann and Melissa. So you both talked about in your intros, you're entrepreneurs. Jean Ann, I've got 4 companies I've started and have run. How do you think your engineering degree has helped contribute to the success as entrepreneurs for both of you?
Well, I mean, I think the understanding that your engineering degree has taught you how to learn is a very important one. And so that makes it possible to, do other things without necessarily having to go get degrees and doing them. I think the other thing is, that sense of the engineering process of, conceive of something, try it, evaluate it, fix it, try it again, evaluate it, fix it, try it again. I mean, that's a startup right there. So I think there's a lot to be said for entrepreneurial engineers, and there's sometimes a perception that if you're an engineer, you may be just really boring and not creative, and that's just silliness if you just think about how many people you personally know who are engineers that play musical instruments. I mean, so that same creativity you may be able to harness in being an entrepreneur if that's the kind of thing you want to do.
Melissa?
Yeah, I think that was well said, Jean Ann. And I think tying back into the consulting comments, engineering does teach you a methodology of how to face obstacles or figure out how to get the right inputs to solve the problem and consider every option. And I think the other thing is that both Jean Ann and I have founded and been in technology business. And so clearly the engineering degree gives you also that instant credibility that you need. And when you're in a small company, you wear multiple hats. So sometimes you actually have to do the testing of the circuit board or the, runs in the software QA, or even packaging up and shipping out product or taking out the trash.
Well, that's really too much about my business.
Yes, I know a little bit about your business, but mine was very similar. I think having that engineering background helps you hire right. It helps you have credibility, whether you're raising money or developing a partnership or making a sale. Knowing what you're talking about is as fundamental as figuring out how to iterate on the business.
I think the other piece that goes with it too, I mean, this is actually something that I tell the engineers who are with me. I mean, usually in my startup companies, we're doing something that hasn't been done before. And so, there's a group of people who will be like, oh, it's never been done, therefore it can't be done. And it's like, well, okay. Melissa knows what I'm going to say. If you're an engineer and you think it can't be done, you're right. Because it's our job to create the impossible, and we do. So if that's where you feel about something, then it's probably time for you to find another spot, another place, another path, another direction, another option. But the best part of engineering is having that creativity to be able to conceive of, create, implement, and then deliver the impossible. That's what we do.
So surely there's failure along the way. How is failure? You both talked about kind of that process, engineering design process. How's failure played into this entrepreneurial effort for both of you?
Melissa, you want to go? Or you want me to go? So I'll give you an example. So the Conaga watch today, this one right here, is the weight and thickness of an Apple Watch 4, but with all of the special things that we do for our demographic. So it's 49 grams. Okay. The first generation Conaga watch that we made was a beautiful stainless steel, medical grade stainless steel watch. It was 116 grams. That's almost a quarter pound. If you are a 93-pound old woman, you might find that to be just a teeny bit too heavy. And so the interesting thing has been, that was the first generation, right? Didn't take too long to figure that out. The interesting thing has been actually watching the industry behind us, trying to be followers, and every one of them's making exactly that same mistake. And I just get to laugh because they haven't learned from it yet, and we have, right? So it is true. I mean, if you don't fail, then you very, very much aren't likely to succeed either. It's kind of a precondition of success is to have failed, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think a lot of entrepreneuring is really being being able to fail and pick yourself back up, find the friends that will back you when you need that backing. When I worked 4 different cycles on trying to sell my company, and I hired and fired several investment bankers and over the years. And at the end of the day, I was the one that pitched it to the partner companies and cast the net wide to 8 or 10 different partners that I thought would want to integrate it as things were consolidating. And the first one, we had a deal and it fell apart, or it didn't happen the way I wanted it to, but you just have to keep looking for the angle that you can play. And it turned out that we got a much better buyer and a better outcome for our team by just sticking with it. And I took the first company that kind of didn't end up honoring the deal, used us to buy a different company. And I took the news item that came from there and I showed the second buyer prospect how they either needed to make a move or they weren't going to have the market opportunity. And so sometimes you just have to, pick yourself up, spin it again. It's much like building the company. Like Jean Ann said, if you're not failing, you're not optimizing or getting the best thing.
That sounds very similar in a way to the imposter syndrome process. It's that, if you're feeling that or you failed in something, sometimes it's just pressing on, sticking with it, pushing through. And that's part of that process to get to the next thing. All right, well, let's move to Sonia and Nay. So you both have this interesting career path as engineers now in these roles that involve business and have business words in your title, even for your companies. So how did you get there? How did your engineering career path take you to where you are?
So I can go first, Sonia, if that's all right. When I think about business, I feel that as engineers, we're all part of the business. And I think the best engineers understand where we fit in the business and how the overall system needs to work. For me, where I ended up landing within the business is in marketing and pricing, specifically within marketing. But when I graduated with my bachelor's in biomedical engineering, and as the first class of this undergraduate program, we were all just trying to understand what did it mean to be a biomedical engineer. We had experience and capabilities that we learn from the different disciplines. But in the first half of my career, my engineering degree took me to a role as a biomedical engineer, thankfully. And I was able to work in 2 startups as well to design, develop, commercialize medical devices. What was fantastic about this part of my career was that in these startup companies and smaller companies, I was able to learn the entire aspect of the value chain, from drawing something out in SolidWorks and designing it, prototyping it, to building out, to transferring it to manufacturing and building out the manufacturing line, and then to selling it and market it at the various trade shows and meet customers, and throughout the way continue to get customer feedback and fail and restart again and fail some more. So that's how my degree took me to business. It's one, to learn all the aspects of business in that value chain. And if I picture myself in my first role in the startup, I was developing prototypes and designing these cardiovascular catheters, and I was testing it alongside a cardiothoracic surgeon in this startup for these animal studies. And I started to wonder, as I was failing through this prototype and continuing to reiterate it with our customer, how can I get more feedback from the customers about how do they use it? How do I better understand the market? How do I better make sure that we are designing what they will actually value and use? So that's, as an engineer and going through that design and development process, I was more and more curious about the market and our customers, how they work, what they need in the hospital environment, in the overall healthcare system. So that took me into marketing and the cornerstone that I see in marketing is customer insights and learning about how they work, what they need, what problems do they face. So that's how, as my biomedical engineering degree took me to marketing.
Awesome. Thank you. Saamiya.
Yeah, my story is a little different. I actually started at TI. So with my biomedical engineering, I studied track 1, so a lot of very heavy signal processing focus. You do a lot of imaging algorithms, right? That's the kind of that's the focus. So you learn a lot about DSPs. And so I actually joined TI straight on the processor side of the business, really because of taking a lot of what I learned in signal processing and a lot of the electrical engineering classes that kind of laid the foundation. Interestingly enough, at the time, TI was starting a medical kind of team and was investing in devices in that area, and I signed on as part of that. By the time I hired into TI, funny story, that team was disbanded, so it was no longer there. So I kind of, here I am at TI, and I honestly didn't think I was going to stay so long. And that's my little confession. But here I am a decade later, and I'm still at TI. And so really, what I thought my journey, or where I thought my journey was going to take me, ended up completely changing in a different way. And I've enjoyed my time, my ride, right? And that's why I've stayed with the company. I ended up actually kind of coming into the product marketing role, and then over time, spending time with the processor portfolio, then moving over to TI's analog portfolio and spending some time there, mostly in the business roles. But what I really enjoyed was that in the semiconductor industry, you get to touch all the different types of technologies and really see the trends as they emerge and interact with customers that are really driving those trends forward. So, for example, whether it's 5G or big data or Internet of Things, autonomous driving, AI, cloud computing, smartphones, really any big trend that's kind of touched the electrical engineering space, right? Semiconductors have to be a part of it because you're designing products that kind of go into these products. And so you really get to deepen your engagement on the engineering, on the technical side, to really understand what are the challenges or what are the design challenges that engineers are trying to solve, and then how can we innovate and use some of the IP that we're building to go and help them solve those problems. And being at the forefront of those conversations has been just very interesting because, and it's really every day is a different conversation, so different market, it's a different customer, and being part of that journey has been a lot of fun. For me, formulating and executing strategy, business strategies, how do you go and build a business? How do you go and build a portfolio? What are the technologies we want to invest in? Where do we want to be investing design resources? To me, that is just a fun challenge to go and work on every day. So that's kind of how, even though I studied biomedical engineering, I've kind of taken quite a different path since I graduated.
Awesome. And you both went and got your MBAs along the way. not right out of your bachelor's, but along your career path. Can you talk a little bit about why you decided to go get your MBA, those second Longhorn degrees?
May, do you want to go first? Or...
You're on a roll, Sonia. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So for me, I had spent my career at TI, and as part of that, you get to spend time in different product categories. Some businesses that I was part of or managed were small businesses and growing. Others were businesses that were in a already very large and were more commoditized. Others were more differentiated. So you have different kind of exposure. You have exposure to different product lines and different businesses inside of TI. And so one thing that I really wanted that MBA to help augment was kind of the theory to go with some of the experiential skills, some of the business strategies that we were dealing with for day in and day out. Really depends on what are the products you're trying to build, what is the competitive landscape for those customers that are wanting to use your products, right? What are some of the investment decisions you want to make? A lot of those trade-offs will be different from business to business, and so really an MBA was more kind of a way to augment that learning, that hands-on learning with some of the theory as well. But the other piece of it is simply wanting to also expand my network. There's a huge value in learning and interacting with people from outside your industry. You get to learn a ton from classmates who are in private banking, private equity, for example, to investment banking, consumer product goods, consulting, entrepreneurs. And a lot of them now, I can call as really close friends, and, I can use them as kind of thought partners. So that was kind of the allure and what I gained out of my MBA. And at the end of the day, it's fun to always be learning. So.
Yeah, for me, what drove me to pursue an MBA? Well, as I mentioned, I was part of that first startup when I just got my bachelor's, and in that startup, we got acquired by a larger company, and through that acquisition, there was restructuring, and essentially, and to bluntly put it, I got laid off, and I found that as an opportunity to explore my next steps. I still knew that I wanted to stay as an engineer for now, but I still had my curiosity peaked as I was working with the customers. I was meeting more of them, learning about the market, and I saw, how that could better translate back to our design and development process and inform what we need to make and build. I was starting to get more curious about business. So, but during that time, back in 2008, 2009, it was really, interesting time challenging time from an economic, point of view. But I, didn't just think about my MBA. I thought about, hey, should I get a master's in public health? This is a good time to just pursue a master's in education. May be difficult to get back into the industry back in 2009. But luckily, I decided to go to my MBA instead of getting a master's in public health, because I thought there would be more doors that could open with an MBA. Maybe I could continue to explore down the healthcare track, but I could also see what may fall into the entertainment industry or in food and beverage. Who knows? MBA can help you explore multiple different industries and take you to different functions within business, and not just marketing, perhaps finance and operations. So that's, what drove my decision to get an MBA is that opportunity to explore different avenues, and also to see, what different industries I should be exploring. But I was lucky enough to continue with my engineering career and do the Texas Evening MBA program. So at the same time, still work as a full-time engineer in this other startup and smaller company. And that was helpful because I was also learning next to other people who are still working as full-time engineers or in other jobs, and we were able to share with each other what we were learning and taking from class immediately into our work environments. So I found that very helpful.
Awesome. Well, we've got some questions coming in, so that's good. I'm going to start actually with, I said I was going to start with Chelsea's question first, but I'm going to go to Elisa's first, and I think I'm going to combine Chelsea and Angie's for our next question. But Elisa's question is, what's the best and worst part of your job? Any of you? All of you? What do you love? What do you hate? What's good? What's bad?
Well, I can start on that. The parts I like best about my job are when some new problem comes in where I need to learn something new. And that's, really, it's interesting, it's cool, it's fun. I love the computer simulations that I do, the structural analysis. And so those things are the best part of my job. The worst part of my job is, having to plod through writing up results and do all that, or go out and talk to people beating the bushes trying to find new work. To me, that's the part that I'm not as comfortable with, not as interested in doing. And so it's the worst part.
I think for me, the best part of the job is when I see the light come in a client's eyes, when I tell them a solution that they hadn't thought of at all, because not all engineering problems have engineering solutions. Sometimes it needs a different approach. So it's always nice to see that. The worst part is kind of the administrative tasks. We just opened up our business now, and I feel like, I am the accountant and, all the admin things. And so that takes up a lot of time. And so I think that, that's something that I don't enjoy doing, but yeah.
So for me, I travel a ton, or pre-COVID, I used to travel a ton. The part that I hated about my job was expense reports. They're the worst. And I would always put them off until I would get the notifications from our accounting finance telling me that, I've days overdue and I need to submit my receipts. So that's like kind of I agree with you on the on the administrative stuff, catching up on that. I tend to procrastinate like no other. The part that I really enjoy is actually traveling and meeting with customers. So I guess, you take a little pain for the gain. So.
Yeah, I would agree with Sonia. The best part of my job was to meet customers around the world, and I used to travel a lot as well. But I would say, these days, the best part of my job is still staying connected globally with all of my global team members and learning about and hearing from our customers around the world still virtually and remotely. So I love being part of this global corporation like General Electric, GE Healthcare, because I'm like all of the teams that I work with were not in one specific region. We're all spread around the world. So I love learning about different parts of the world and how teams work, how the different markets work. But that coincides with the worst part of my job is trying to manage all of the different times that we meet, and living here in Sydney, Australia definitely can be the worst time zone in the world to try to manage. So it's kind of a 24/7 job.
Yeah, especially if you're linking with the
Yeah.
US.
Yeah.
I think the best part of my job is, well, twofold. I've worked for the Fortune 100 type companies. I've worked for the privately held but large company, and then started with 2 people and grew a company and sold it. And the company that acquired mine has about 1,400 people. But the thing that's different about the company, which is one of the best parts, is it's run as a cooperative, a technology cooperative. So much like REI or Whole Foods prior to the Amazon acquisition, it is customer owned, which is a whole different dynamic. And it's a company that's making ERP software, so accounting, finance, payroll, compliance reporting, engineering operations, the whole kit and caboodle to run these businesses. So it's been a good learning experience, and it's kind of eye-opening to see how differently the business can be structured and the pros and cons of that. I'm in a role where I'm both still externally facing on partnerships and strategic customers, and helping figure out how to penetrate their marketplace with our software. They view what we did as rather strategic to their future. And so I'm getting to interface with a lot of people, and I used to call my job Chief Extrovert Officer. I like connecting with people, and volunteering for this role here. But as such, and given this company does everything themselves, in the partnering role, a big challenge for me has been how to convince this company that has 50-year track record that they need to embrace this technology partner, or plug in and let somebody else resell part of the software and all that. So that's kind of the best and worst part of my job right now, because I just finished a deal, but it was a lot of arm wrestling and trying to get them to think outside the box. And, and I don't get to call the shots anymore. So I got to line everybody else up and get them on board. So.
That makes me really tempted to say, and the best part of my job is I call the shots. But that's actually not true. Actually, the best part of my job is being able to build a team where we actually deliver the impossible, like we've done with the Kanega Watch. The number of people who said we couldn't do what we've done, and that we couldn't do it in the time we've done it, and we couldn't do it and how little money we've done it. That's just a pretty cool feeling to be able to create like that. I think the worst part of my job is, talking to people who, there's always detractors. Like Melissa was talking about, having to get everybody to line up and see, that those people exist kind of everywhere. And so when there's a worst part of my job, it's when I get one of those detractors who says, something like, well, what you've done with a Kanega watch isn't necessary. And of course, I know, and they're clueless. I'll just put that there.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to combine Angie and Chelsea's questions because I think they're somewhat interrelated. So when or how did you decide that you wanted to go, for those of you that ended up in these business spaces instead of staying technical, and maybe for those of you that have stayed kind of in some of these technical realms, what made you decide to do that? And then with that, is there value in going and pursuing that kind of traditional route, that maybe going into industry, getting that kind of traditional engineering experience first before heading into some of these spaces like what you all are doing?
So I'm gonna, since I'm still unmuted, I'm gonna start with that one, because I've got kind of some thoughts on this. Sonia, I don't think I ever met you at TI, but I was the founder of Luminary Micro. You knew that. Did we meet then? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Okay. I'm the only one who didn't say when I went to college, but it was a long time ago. I did 30 years in semiconductors, and then I retired the first time, and then I came back out of retirement to start my current company. So, so one of the things that I ended up doing in my career, and it worked out great, and I wish I could say that this was a plan, but it wasn't, was I actually kept bouncing back and forth between the business and the technical. So there was a period of time at AMD where I was the highest ranking technical female in Austin. And then I went into technical marketing, and then I, ran business units. And then, I mean, I did all of that stuff and just kind of kept going around and coming back and going around and coming back. And I'm still, I mean, yes, I'm a CEO today, but I'm the CEO of a startup. I'm still fairly technical. I don't do real work, but we end up actually working through the strategies in the past that we're going to go down together. So it turned out to be a really advantageous thing for me in semiconductors, that in my semiconductor career, I ended up having experience as a product test engineer, as an applications engineer, working customer support, all of that kind of stuff in addition to my design work. So that when I was first leading a business unit, when I was first running a product line, I at least understood enough about everybody else's jobs to know what I should be able to expect from people. And I think that had a lot to do with, some of the successes that I had in those days. So there are some people who know for sure that they want to go and do exactly this. I was never that person. And if you are that person, you should go do that. But if you're not, there's a lot to be, there's no rule that says, I can't be in engineering and then go into technical marketing and then turn around and come back into engineering, because you totally can, right? You've got the degree that says you know how to learn. So now I'm done.
I think I want to jump on something that Jinan said. And I was just actually talking to a group of graduate students. People get really hung up on what the right path is. And I really want to, reinforce that there is no right path. Everyone has a unique path. And one of the things that I can advise as you start your career is don't compare yourself to others. As Jinan was saying, if you have a strong idea of what you want to do, go for that. Don't think of what's traditional versus not traditional, right? Because your ideas and your skill set will work for you. Having said that, for me personally, right now I'm doing a leadership company and professional development company. For me, going the traditional route worked, and then going into business worked, because I wasn't really sure. I had always thought that I would be in engineering. It's only when I started working in the consulting world that I saw that some of the biggest roadblocks in companies were because, the engineering side and the business side didn't really know how to talk to each other, or didn't really know how to translate things. And I realized that that was my skill set. I was a very, very good translator in between the worlds. And as I was saying earlier, a lot of the problems that come up in companies is not the technical problem, it's actually management issues, which is what gave me the idea to start up my company this year. And so what I would say is believe in your own ideas and don't compare yourself to others. Learn from others' path, learn from others' mistakes, but be courageous enough and believe in yourself enough to follow your own path.
Yeah, I'll add, and just I tell these stories sometimes to people. I decided I was going to be a biomedical engineer when I was in the 4th grade. Most people couldn't spell biomedical engineering in the 4th grade, but I knew that that's what I was going to do, right? And so I was the type of person that has a plan. I have a plan for everything. Everything is started out. I already know what I'm going to be doing 5 years from now. But over the years, I've learned that that may not, just like what you guys are saying, that may not be the right way, because you miss out on opportunities along the way when all you're doing is focusing on what's kind of in the future. And picking a role that you can grow from in the present, and knowing what it is that you're wanting to learn and that you're going to enjoy learning it, I think is a lot more valuable than trying to have a certain title, you know, in 15 years when you don't even know what that is like, right? I can tell you for a fact, I never thought that I would be, this was years ago when I was in that role, that I was going to be launching PI's first Hall sensors. Who even knows what a Hall sensor is? I didn't even know what a Hall sensor was, right? But had I been so stuck on what I wanted to be when I grow up, or when I was, you know, what I was going to grow up, I would have missed that opportunity, and I would have never learned that part of the business, and I would have never been able to experience and go through a lot of the things that I was able to go, you know, my experiences that led me up to that point and then beyond. I would have missed it entirely. So I would say, you know, for each of you, take the time to learn what's out there, but don't be so obsessed about what you want to be in 20 years. Instead, you know, really focus on what you want to learn now, because I think that is you're going to get so much more out of that. And, you know, there will be time from here. You know, if you don't like it 6 months down the line, 6 years down the line, you'll have the opportunity to change it. It's not like anything you sign up for is a done deal. Mm-hmm. You know, you can, I'm sure, just look at the panel here, right? You have career switchers, or you have folks who've been in the same company for 10 years, right? So you've got all types of options in front of you. So it's not like you're making a lifelong commitment. So just make sure that you're happy with what you're picking now, and then know that you've always got an option to change later on. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I would, you know, just second everything that everybody just said. If I were to go tactically speaking, one great piece of advice that I got early in my career when I was thinking about, you know, should I look down a different path, was someone told me to look at the leaders at the companies where I aspire to be, and simply read up on their bios and how they got to those positions. That could help give you a sense of their path that they took. But like Saamiya said, there's no set path that, you know, there is out there. But for me, you know, I'm a very tactical person. I'm like, okay, what is my action plan? What should I be thinking about? So someone said, well, have a look at who you aspire to be, check out their bios, and learn about the path they took. But still at the core of who you are, keep that very close and know what you're passionate about, what you're interested in. Like Sonia said, what do you want to learn more about? When I was reading the bios, I saw a lot of global experience from the leadership. And I saw them diverting a lot of different ways. But one thing I took away was they had experience from other regions. They may have explored, you know, the Asia markets and came back to the US. So I said, okay, I'm going to go outside of the US and see what it's like to work abroad and live abroad for a while. That's why I'm here in Australia. But that's my path. So it's all about what you want to do. For me, it helped to be tactical and set out that specific action plan.
And like some of the other panelists say, I would also recommend be open to new opportunities. When I was studying aerospace, and what got me into aerospace was the space program. It's like, how cool would it be to be, you know, an astronaut or working on space stuff? And I did get to do some of that as a co-op. But for very personal reasons, once I graduated, I moved to San Antonio and went to work in the aviation industry, something I didn't know anything about. But I have since spent my entire career very happily working in the aviation industry. It just because of a chance opportunity. Now, that personal reason I've been married to for something more than 31 years now. So I think, you know, it was a good thing that brought me to San Antonio and got me working in a different industry than I probably would have otherwise. But it was just a chance decision that brought me into a different type of job than I would have taken otherwise. Similar skill sets, but just working in a different part of the industry. But the main thing I would recommend is education is always a good thing. No, that's something no one can ever take away from you. And it always helps you put yourself in a position to take advantage of opportunities. Now, some of that education can be formal, like through an MBA program, but some of it can be things you learn in any particular job. And so everything you learn helps you be in a position to take advantage of opportunities that just happen to come your way. And so it's like, but always be open to them.
Yeah, I think this generation of students probably knows more than anybody that the resources that are available for enrichment and education now are limitless, practically. I mean, I think about my own sons, and my high schooler was teaching himself about string theory and quantum mechanics, and just following YouTube nerds. So I mean, it's like, I think on the question about how do you get started down the business path, I mean, I think first just go find curriculums online or YouTube segments on the topic that you're interested in. There's a plethora of stuff out there, and kind of dig in. People talked about building networks, joining clubs. That's how I got a lot of my education on entrepreneurship. I joined different groups in town that were, how to raise money or how to run a company, these types of clubs. So find the club, find the online resource, don't just jump into MBA school. Go try it out first.
Trisha, you're on mute.
I know, and then I lost my mouse. So see, I'll edit all that out. I can edit that out. It will look beautiful when it gets posted somewhere. So there's a question that Olivia threw in there and Elise seconded about, how do you start down the path? And I cheated and I looked to see what year both of you all are. And as second year students, yes, you're going to run into that problem right off the bat because and I've seen lots of nods. The companies that are coming to campus to look for second year students for that first internship, they want you to come in and be an engineer. Some of those business types of opportunities start to come as after like your junior year. There's some companies that might have some of those spaces as internships, but a lot of that comes once you're out. The companies that are coming to campus want to hire you as an engineer. They want to use you as an engineer for a little bit before they might send you into those business programs. But some companies do come and have like a business track that they hire engineers into. So you'll just have to look for those, but a lot of those don't come till later. So that's why as a second year student, you're not really seeing those just yet.
I have another idea for that is not only to go to the engineering expos at UT, to also go to the business school ones. I don't know if that's still allowed, but when we were students, and I think also in your resume, if you're taking leadership seminars from WEP, I would put that in your resume because that also shows that, you're interested in business and you're learning the skills from it.
So
you have some time. Go ahead, Sonia.
A quick plug. I know for those of you who are taking the business foundations minor, so TI does have internships that will put you straight on the business path, among other roles as well. And one of the things that we do is actually we'll look for students who have a business foundations minor, just as it shows us that as a prospective student or employee, you're interested in the business path either now or sometime in the future. So often when they may not know that TI is offering a kind of a product marketing internship. And so this is how we kind of explain, or we show that or talk about it to our students.
Awesome. Well, we are 4 minutes past time, and I know it's late, and our students have been on Zoom probably all day, as have all of our fabulous alums who joined us. But thank you. Oh my goodness. I love hearing all the things that you're doing, and it inspires me Hopefully that was inspiring to all of our fabulous students who joined in. Thank you, thank you. We will be posting this, and I know we'll have a lot of students watch this later as well. So thank you, thank you.